All right, Stalingrad. I come from an era a little later than this. And so this doesn't hold a lot of charm for me. I come from a style of gaming that this does not particularly address well. And in fact, had this been, my first war game, I might not have ever gotten into the hobby. Then again, I might have. I might have misplayed it and made up variants and stuff and had fun with it. A lot of people definitely did that side of it. A lot of people, maybe more, got into the highly competitive nature of this. As a simulation, it's horrible at one level. But let's think about the time. 1963 it came out. There wasn't anything, basically. The Milton Bradley games came out about that same time. Diplomacy comes out in '59, but diplomacy is a neat thing and still holds its weight today as whatever it is. And we'll leave that question for when we look at diplomacy. But Milton Bradley was coming out with a couple of their military-themed games, Hit the Beach or whatever, which is supposedly terrible and I've never played it. Battle Cry is around this era. It really doesn't simulate anything. It's a game where you're building lines of units and jumping. There's a little bit of feel, of flavor of some sort, but it's completely an abstracted situation. Dogfight, I think, is a little later than this, but not much. That comes out, and that's kind of interesting. It's got that card play type thing. It doesn't feel, like it's a dedicated simulation of air combat, but it kind of works. Down in Flames works too. That's cards too. The same kind of feel, more strategy in Down in Flames. But anyway, the point is that other than what Avalon Hill was putting out, Tactics 2, Blitzkrieg, these fantasy games based on modern mechanized warfare, this was pretty damn early, and it does capture the overall flow of the campaign. The Russians are going to have to give up a lot of the territory historically they gave up. From what I'm told, it's fairly well balanced by the 74 version. We'll get to the 74 version in a moment. And, it makes a serious attempt to at least portray a good deal of a historical situation. That it doesn't get a lot of it right, especially on kind of the micro level. No exploitation movement, nothing, going on of that nature. Well, that you don't have the encirclements that you tend to have, that historically happen, that you don't have the forces. The order of battle is completely fictional in this. All that can kind of be waved away with, for its time. Yeah. Still, for its time, this would not have hooked me, I don't think. I'm not sure, but I really don't think so. And for today, unless, you grew up playing Stalingrad and a couple of other of the old age classics to get your area rating up and everything, I just really can't suggest it, because your competition, there's a large hurdle to getting good at the game, and it's not something that is particularly appealing to me, and I doubt to many people in general. And it's this: you have to you have to get your odds right, and you have to constantly be figuring out how to get your right numbers in place, and what soak-off attack's gonna produce what you want. And okay, I guess that appealed to some people. It certainly doesn't feel chess-like to me, but once you have that out of the way, you can at least start looking at these broader strokes. Okay, I want to launch an attack in this direction. I don't feel like that really happens, though, to tell you the truth. I feel like whatever the Russian defense is at the beginning of the game pretty much determines what the game is going to be. Where am I going to be able to launch my successful attacks? Or where is there some real defect that I can try to take advantage of? In my game, it looked like the eastern border of Finland being undefended. Wow, get away with that, right? Yeah. Well, the Russians did, but I misplayed so much. Who knows about the value of any given strategy that you could probably get from my kind of playing. And I think that'll be the case all the time with this game. It's just not, fixed into me. I'm never going to be able to play it at the level that the people who really studied it. You have to remember, they had like 10 years before games started changing from this type. Well, Battle of the Bulge is a little different, a little bit more interesting, I guess. Anyway. The 74 reprint is a really kind of questionable idea, especially if you think, Russian campaign came out in 74 too. Why were they doing this? Well, they weren't. Genko printed the Russian campaign. Avalon Hill realized, wow, there's something better out there that really fixes everything that we're looking at. And you have to remember at the same time, in that early 70s era, you're seeing the Europa games starting to come out, and they're covering a little bit more. I don't remember when Panzer Krieg came out. Again, that got picked up by Avalon Hill later. That was originally OSG. That's got your exploitation movement phase and all that kind of stuff. I have never played the Russian campaign, which makes it almost, it's like some people see it as the Grail, the best game ever on the topic at all. I doubt that I would find it that way. Simply, I would probably get more enjoyment out of it than I get out of this. This has too big a barrier to entry. And I'll tell you, one of the big barriers is that you have to set up your defensive line at the beginning of the game, and then you have to figure out all your attacks at the beginning of the game before you get anywhere. So instead of there being a historical setup that'll give you fairly historical starting results, well, we know you're not going to get fairly historical starting results because the system doesn't support it, okay? And so I can understand why the historical setup isn't given, but what it does mean is that there's a real leap. You have to basically jump into this game. Now, I guess you could play a turn or two of it and say, oops, Russia didn't defend itself well, it's over. Or, wow, my initial German attacks, I didn't do as well as I could, it's over. We'll just keep keep replaying that first couple turns until we start to understand what the game kind of generates there. Once you get past those first couple of turns, the game actually kind of flows. In the sense that you don't have that many options anymore. You don't have a whole board to try to figure out, all right, where can I get my 3-to-1 attack possibly? Where can I possibly get a 3-to-1 attack in? Or where can I possibly, how many 2-to-1 attacks am I willing to tolerate? Am I willing to tolerate a 1-to-1 early in the game? Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good idea, unless it's a soak-off. So, it's like throwing two people who know the rules to chess but kind of have no idea how to play together. In that sense, it's chess-like, right? Or Go. Although I had fun playing Go and I didn't know how to play and nobody else did either. We were just, throwing pieces down and trying and following the rules more or less, and so I can see this still having some attraction though to the people who put in that time and effort in those early days and fought it through. Now, whether or not in '74 the little changes that they made, which basically seems to be mainly for balance, was worth a republication is a big, big if. The hobby had changed a lot by then. You've got SPI in place. You've got some of these other companies putting out things that aren't, that aren't just kind of saying, yeah, we're kind of historical. We've got a historical campaign and we got pieces that kind of look military. It leaves me kind of baffled at that year, except that, well, by '74, people's games are wearing out. Their stock had depleted. They were still selling it. What the hell? If we can make money off of it, if people still want it. Attempts to try to fix this game, putting, mods into it and everything, that I really question. I mean, that made sense before the '74 reprint, probably. That might make sense if this was the only war game you had on the topic, if it was all you could find. But in today's era, it seems to me like, unless you're looking at it from that, combination of nostalgia and, oh wow, I got really good at the competitive side of this game, I just don't see putting the effort to play this. Why do I have it? Well, because it was gotten cheap at a flea market, or a tag sale or something. And to put the effort in to try and make this a little bit more realistic, why bother? People tried that for a long time. It didn't work. And there are plenty of games out there that represent the situation well. Some which are also fairly light, if you can call this fairly light. I consider the thinking and the counting in this enough to put it into the, wow, that's really a pain in the ass, especially right off the bat. Yeah, the rules aren't that hard to read. Old Avalon Hill rules, maybe they're better than the later versions of them when Greenwood comes into play. But they didn't quite understand how to get, the information across as well as Dunnigan did, to be honest. I don't know if, GDW's rules weren't terribly good either. OSG was kind of okay, but I think they came after the SPI thing, and they had trouble keeping them, correct in a way that was worse than SPI did. Anyway, my feeling on this is it's probably something you want to kind of experience, and I feel that way, like I'd like to have the Russian campaign to play it, but I'm not willing to pay the money for that. It's cheap, right? But it's not really something you're going to go back to very often if you're from my era or later. And if the only real reason for this is because, I don't know, maybe Dad or Grandpa remembers it and loves it. It's like, I want to play this, and you're like, okay, all right. The newer games, you're not willing to accept them, but we can go back and do this. As an introduction to wargaming, I think this is a horrible, horrible choice. Mainly because of the burden on the players, in terms of counting, in terms of finding the odds correctly. It's just basically in terms of setting up the game. Plus, there's so much movement because of the rails. They allow you such quick movement and into enemy territory, even if you you can find a hole to exploit or something. But they give you so much movement that, except when the weather's bad, you have a humongous amount of forces that you could bring to bear on any given space. And with the stacking limitations and everything, you have to do all these different permutations. Well, how do I get this there? A fairly unrealistic handling of the movement rules with regard to the rails, which really degrades play. And you can say, well, there's no reason for that then, right? Yeah, that's pretty much the case. And the game is just plagued with, little things like that indicate that, in 74 it was already showing its age. By now, there's better stuff from the era that the 74 reprint came out. There's better stuff, certainly, moving forward. And I can't see much point to anybody playing this except the reasons I've given already. But that's okay. It's nice to have even my beat-up copies, It was in much better shape when I got it, but my movie and everything demolished my games, especially these flat box Avalon Hill things. They do not hold up well. And I can tape it back together, I guess, but again, that's effort put into it that I just don't feel like it deserves. Does it deserve the effort of me having played it? Probably not, but I feel like if I own something, I must play it every now and then, and I can't get rid of anything. It's a good thing women leave me, yeah? All right. Let's send this out.